Hello guys, good morning. If you can hear me, please let me know because it's raining really heavily over here. All right, that's good. Okay, so let's see.
Okay, so today we'll be learning about views, okay? Basically, how to render user interfaces from Node.js, all right? Or let's say how to render HTML codes and static assets from Node.js. That's what this class will be about. So as usual, we have a blank folder and we all know what to do. At least we should know what to do. First, we have to initialize our folder as a node project. All right. So we do npm init -y. We're in the view in express folder. So we run this command there. So we have our package.json file. And the next thing we need to do, because our server is going to be running on Express, so we'll do npm i -c, no, npm i express, because the dev is a dependency, not dev dependency. All right. And the next thing I want to install would be nodemon, npm i -save dev, because this is a dev dependency. All right. And then I'll create my server.js file. Okay. So I'll go into my package.json and change this to server.js. That's my main entry point. And then I'll create a script that I'm going to call start dev. And this script is going to run node mon server.js. And I'll create another script called start. And this is going to run in production mode, which would use node server.js. All right. So that is that. Okay, so now we run npm run start dev to start our server. Okay. So server.js could not be found. Let's see. Server.js could not be found. Okay, it says nodemon could not be found. Let's see. I thought we installed nodemon. Dependency. Let's go again. Oh, I did not type the package. All right. So there you go. So now if we run this command, our server should be up and running. Okay. All right. So we have no code in the server. Let's go ahead and set up our server. I'm going to do things a little differently from the last class because I want to point out something to you. And most likely this is how you would see it written in most production servers. All right. So if you happen to work with any company that's running on Node, you'll have something like this, all right, set up there. So it's going to be like what you will see in the real world. So we use HTTP, our HTTP module to create our server as opposed to using Express. So we use HTTP and we would type require HTTP. So you can do node HTTP, okay? And we create our server with HTTP. So server equals to http.create server. Then remember that we pass a handler. We're supposed to pass a handler, which is a function, into this server. So our handler will be request and response, and we say server.listen, all right, on ports, let's just say 8000, and the callback function that could just log something to the console. Say server running on port, all right. Hello guys, sorry my internet went off. Ikenna, please make me host. Ikenna, you have been made host automatically. Please return it back to me. Thank you. All right, I'll share my screen now. Share. Okay. All right. So I was talking about, before I went off, I was talking about, I hope you guys can hear me good. Before I went off, I was talking about how that we use our Express app, all right, as our handler. So I'm going to pass app into this create server function. All right. So app now works like our handler. All right. So we could do things like app dot get, just the way we would have used Express. All right. / and then say res and res.json message server running. Okay, so if we try that out, let's use our Thunder clients. So I'm just gonna say send, and I get server running. So everything is working fine. So we have been able to set up our server. The difference now is that we use our HTTP module, but then we use Express, our Express app, as the handler for our server. All right. So what handles the routes and functionality for us is going to be Express, but the core server is being run by with HTTP, the core module. All right. This gives us some advantages that I will not be able to explain to this class. Some technical advantages, maybe somewhere down the line. We'll talk about them. Okay. So let's go back to our files, and here we are. Say, for instance, you want to do server-side rendering. That means you want to be able to render your front-end application directly from Node.js. All right, for instance, I've not checked the assignment that I was given concerning forms and all this stuff. But let's assume that you want to do that from Node.js, all right? It is very possible. For a lot of persons, they think that Node.js is just for APIs and stuff. But no, you can render from front end from Node.js. All right, so what we'll do is I'm going to create a folder that I'll call public. All right. And then in my public folder, I would have some static assets. So I could have index.html. All right, I could have files here, images, just like our normal HTML project would be. It will be inside public. So let me create CSS and then JavaScript. All right, so you can have all this here. And then you can go ahead and write your normal HTML. So let's just call this landing page. All right. And say welcome to our site. Okay. And then let's try to run this. All right. Let's try to configure our server to serve this asset. All right. So that's our HTML page. So how can we do that? So we come here and we simply configure our server for that purpose. So I'm going to say app.use. Anytime you see use, know that we're trying to configure a middleware. All right. I'm going to say app.use, and I'm trying to configure a static renderer or static engine. So I'm going to say express.static. Okay. And then it requires, we check the documentation, it requires a string that tells us the root for our static file. All right. And that's just going to be public. PUBLIC. Okay. So I hope I am right. So let's try something. So I'm going to do localhost 8,000. And you see we have welcome to our site. So we're serving our HTML here. So if I zoom in you can see welcome to our site. And that's our HTML file being served. All right, so it looks like magic, but it's not. We're simply telling Node.js to serve this public folder. Everything inside this public folder should be served. All right, statically. We can even give it a route. Okay, so this we could just say /static, so that when users visit our site and they go to /static, they get this served. All right, but if they come here to the home URL, they get our API return server running, as you see here. All right, so you have the option of giving it a proxy URL or a URL, that virtual URL, whatever it's being called, URL that is not existing in the server. There's nothing like static in the server. This is just for rendering our public directory. All right. Now, this is not meant to be just public like this. This is going to depend on where you are. Okay. For instance, if server is being run from inside another folder, will have to come out like this, just the way you do navigation. All right. But the fact that, because of the fact that server and public are on the same directory or the same path, we could just say public like that. All right. So that should be noted. Okay. And this name could be any name. Public is just a convention that, we use. It could be anything. You can call it anything. You can call it client. All right, and rename this folder client. Okay, you just have to know that it should be the name of the folder where you have your static files. That's what you should have here, and then you can choose to configure a route for it or not. All right. For more information, you have the Express documentation here for you. Okay, I think it's API reference. Here you come to express.static and you can read up on it here. All right, so there's a whole lot that you can do with that. Okay, so let's say we want to create a login form. All right, I want to create a login form. How can we do that? Form action, we could say HTTP, because this will be our server now. HTTP local host 8000/login. All right, and then we have our inputs of type text, and it's going to be username. All right, and then input again, text, this time password, and then it's going to be password. Okay, and then we need an input of type submit, and the value is going to be submit. That's the name of the button. So if we go back to our static, all right, we're going to have our form here. Okay, you might want to make it more beautiful. So as a backend developer, you need to know these things, because sometimes you want to understand what the front-end guys are going through. All right, and how your API should behave towards their application. You don't need to be good with whatever, building front ends, but you just have to have an idea. All right, so we have our form here now. Let's just give it a name. Call it login form, or just a login. And there you go, we have our login form. So currently, if we click this form, you see that it's taking us to somewhere that we don't know. All right, it's taking us here and saying cannot get /login. So let's inspect. Right click and click on inspect, and then you go to network. Let's see what's happening. So you go back to our page, submit. Let's see all requests. All right, and then you see that we're trying to submit to this URL. All right, but then it's not working. Why? It is because we simply do not support this path in our server. All right, our server has nothing like /login. So how might we do that? We just to check that you guys can still hear me. So we just go to the server and support the route. As simple as that, app.get, okay, /login and res rec, okay, res.json. We will just have to return whatever they give us. So let's log it first. Console.log rec the body. So this will be body. All right. So we have this now where we can now support that route. So let's try again. So go back to the form and try to submit. And there we have a 500 res.json is not a function. So this should be res and this should be rec. So it's always request before response, okay? So I'm sorry, server. So let's submit again. And you see that it was successful. So we had successful submission. Our payload, nothing for username, nothing for password. All right, so yeah, that's it. Okay, so how do we go forward? So if we type anything here, let's say admin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and try to submit. It's submitted. You can click on the request and you see the payload. Admin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we actually submitted to our server, and on our server we're having undefined. So note that we're trying to log request of body and it is undefined. Why? The reason is because we have to be able to support this type of operation on our server. All right. So what type of operation am I referring to? Now, when you try to submit a form, there are some configurations that you can make on the form. All right. You try to submit a form, there are some configurations that you can make. Let's say, for instance, we're trying to, okay, this is a very basic form. We're just submitting text. We're not submitting files, just text, all right? So the default encryption type, all right, is applications/x-www-form-url encoded, all right? So the default encryption type, so the default way that the data is going to be submitted to the server is through encoded URLs. All right. You don't need to know what that means. What you should know is that your server should be able to support data coming in as encoded URLs. All right. Coming in URL encoded format. Your server should be able to support it. Just like we had to support JSON request. If you remember the last class, we had to use a middleware app.use, that middleware called express.json, right? So that when requests that have the JSON format coming, we are able to recognize them, all right? So we still need a middleware to be able to support this type of data, all right? Data submitted from forms. We need a middleware to handle that, all right? And that middleware, I think the name is, so that's going to be app.use express.url encoded, all right? And this requires a config object, okay? So it requires that you have this extended, I'm going to say false for now. Now, if you want to see what this does or read extensively on it, you have your Express documentation. So if you click on express.url encoded, you can read on what it does. All right. So by default, it requires you to specify this configuration at least. All right. So this is a required configuration for that behavior. So now, if we go back to our front end and try to submit again, let's see what happens. So I'm going to click on submit. All right. Click on my, oh, please. Click on this request. And then you see that we have admin being submitted. And if we check our server, we would see that we now have an empty object. All right. So an empty object is coming in. So let's see. It isn't supposed to be an empty object. So why might that be? So let's check again. Static, admin, submit 200, check my server. Never, please. Okay, we have, so let's restart the server and see if that changes anything. I have this coming in correctly. I have my routes, correct the body. Let's try this. Let's try again. So I'm going to submit. Okay. All right. Everything looks fine. Let's go back to our server. I'm getting empty payload. So let's see. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. Let's debug. I'm gonna get rid of this first and see what happens. Still the same thing, I guess. Okay. God have mercy. Why is Google Chrome disturbing me? So let's go back. And I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to say method get. I'm suspecting this could be the problem, but let's see. Let's see. So I'm going to submit again. I'm going to check my server empty object. I'm going to change this to post. Is it possible to sue browser? All right, let's go again. Admin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Submit. All right, that is not being supported. So we support post instead of get. All right, so let's try again. So I'm going to do admin and then submit. It goes through, and here you go. We have our data. All right. Okay, so the method was our issue as I suspected, but I wanted to be stubborn and use get. All right, so I don't know why get wasn't working, but usually when you submit data, form data, it should be a post request. All right, usually to be a post request because you are trying to perform a sensitive, what is it called now? A sensitive operation. Now, if you have done form handling, front-end form handling, you understand that when you are handling things like password, username, and stuff like that, emails and all the stuff for authentication, the method that should be used is the post method. All right. If you use the get method, you're going to see your credentials in the URL. All right, so I'm going to leave that for the front end guys. Backend folks, just know that we were supposed to use this post method for it to have worked. As you can see here now, we have our username, which is admin. Looking at the terminal, username, which is admin, and the password, which is ASDF. All right, so we've been able to submit from our front end to our back end. All right, so this form could be anything beautiful, like let's try to write some JS and see if it will work, because I know a lot of persons will have questions around, okay, will it work with JS and stuff like that. So let's see if it will work. Or should I leave that as an assignment? I think so. So I'm going to leave that for you guys as an assignment. So I'm going to show you another way to render HTML. Okay, I could copy this stuff you see here. Go back to server and then say that when a user visits our home route, we want to send. All right, we want to send. So what do we want to send? I want to send this code. Save. Okay. Forget all these things. This particular one. So save static file. I'm not saving a static file now at this time. So I go back and go to my home route and press enter. Sorry, 8,000. And there you go. I have our HTML being rendered. I type inside of it, I submit. It works. All right, so you could send HTML code like this, but you and I would agree that it looks like a bad idea already. All right, I just needed to show you that it is possible. Instead of writing your code like this, we can even write styles in here. All right, we can even write styles. My style, and I see dot body. Body should be background. Is that style correct? Let's go back. Fresh thing. All right, so you can write your styles like that. But we can all see that that's a bad idea. All right. So I'm giving you different ways you can approach challenges like what you were given the last time when you had to deal with forms. And then, so if you host your server, all right, you just by hosting your server like this application, you already have a front end and a back end app. All right. I know a lot of us thought that you need to have your APIs in separate server. So Heroku for API and GitHub pages for front end. You can host your front end and back end on Heroku. All right. What you need to know is that your backend server, your hosting platform needs to support Node. It needs to be able to run a Node application. That's all. All right. As long as it can run a Node application, you can install your server on there, and your front end could be running from your server. That's what is called front end server-side rendering. All right. So that's as much as I would say about that. You can go on your own, try to use images and CSS in your JavaScript file and see how that works out. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual stuff I wanted to discuss with you today, which is views.
Hello, T.
Yeah, can you hear me?
So before you go forward, when testing out how this works on the browser's console, on the payload, if I'm correct, it returns what was submitted, pure detail. It wasn't privy. So it is in like real life scenario. So what do we do in instance and in situations like that to hide those information away from users?
You cannot. All right. So what happens is I know this is a confusing topic for a lot of guys, all right? Even experienced developers, it could be confusing, but this is how you need to think about interactions. Okay. So this is how you need to think about interactions. There is a client. There's a client, and then the client speaks to a server. All right. The client speaks to the server. Okay. All right. Your client is your browser. Okay. So when you come on here, for instance, and you type something and submit, this is still you. You are the one viewing this developer console. All right. You know what you typed in here. It was your information. So if you can see it in your developer console, it's still your information. Let's think from the perspective of the person using our site. Let's say you created the site and I am the user. When I come to your website, I would enter my own username and my own password. If I'm able to see it in the developer tools, it doesn't mean that it's insecure. It is still me viewing what I enter. Do you understand? So the client is actually the user. Sorry, yes. Sorry, guys, that was a system malfunction because I don't have my server, my WhatsApp currently on. I don't know why it was able to ring on my laptop. I'm so sorry about that. Just sorry, my WhatsApp is not on. All right, I'll resume sharing and let's continue. So I was saying, okay, so whatever you enter into the browser is your property. All right. We can only say that there could be a problem if somebody comes to your laptop, right, and now inspects and tries to view your password, which is almost unlikely because if the person has to view any password, it has to be the password that they enter themselves. All right, so these things will not be stored in the browser unless you want to store it in the browser. Like, unless you want to store it in your local storage or whatever, stuff like that, which is not something that any developer would do with their clear eyes to store security details in local storage. That's bad. All right. But then everything you see in your browser, you inspect, it is yours. It is as though you are actually browsing your UI. So when you enter your password here, you don't think it is unsafe, right? You don't think it is unsafe, right? It is the same thing as when you come to the inspector and they are able to inspect it and see the value. It doesn't mean that somebody will be able to see it. No, you are the owner of the laptop. You are the one making use of the browser at that time. You can see it temporarily, all right, as the request is being made. Okay, so that is the simplest way I can answer that question right now. I don't know if I was able to make sense.
Yeah, you did. I was confused for a second.
Yeah. All right. So that is
So
very,
okay.
it's a very usual thing.
There was another observation, and I get that sometimes the browser sends like an alert about you having to change your password. So there was
Yeah.
a leak, or I assume.
Yeah, exactly. So Google has a way of, I think they have a database of leaked passwords. So if you use a password that has been breached before, they're going to alert you. Like I was making use of 12345. So that's why they were like, this password is unsafe. So yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. So now there's something called the template engine. All right, a template engine that allows us to render dynamic HTML. So imagine that you want to render HTML based on data. So it's not just that you're rendering something static. Remember, I call this a static file. What it means is that there are things that don't change. Okay, you can render them from your server. That's why we had to make use of this express.static and tell Express that all our static files are going to be in this public directory. All right. Now, in a case where we want to be able to render dynamic data, how do we do that? We do that with template engines or templating engines. All right. There are different types of template engines. There is Pog, there is Handlebars. I think there's Jade. There are many of them, right? And sincerely, the syntax is not something that you store in your head. So let's go to the documentation and see. We're looking for template engines. I'm going to check render. All right. Let's see if they're going to talk about it here. All right. So we could do a search. Template engines for Express. So I'm going to use the Express documentation. And there you go. So template engines enable you to use static template files in your application. At runtime, the template engines replaces variables in a template file with actual values. All right. So that's what makes it dynamic. So some popular template engines that work with Express are Pog, Ustache, EJS, there's Jade and the likes. So by default, Express makes use of Pog. All right. So let's look at this note here. It says Jade has been renamed to Pog. You can continue to use Jade in your app. So Express uses Jade by default. So the Express application generator uses Jade or is Jade, I don't know, by default. All right. So to actually make use of the upgraded version of this, because Jade has been renamed to Pog. All right. So to make use of that, we have to install this Pog. So how do we do that? I'm going to click on that. And we need to run npm install Pog. So let's do that now. I'm going to open a new. So install Pog. And there you go. Let's go back to our server. And how do we make use of Pog? So let's see the documentation. So after installing, you write your HTML like this. So I'm going to copy this. And let's go here. So there are some configurations we need to make. So I'm going to, in the root directory of our project, I'm going to create a folder called views. All right. And we're going to have, let's just call it landing.pug. All right. And I paste the POC template inside of it. Okay. So let's go to our server and do some configurations. So one thing we need to set is we need to tell Express how to handle our views. Oh, this stop calling me now. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry for the interruption. So we're going to go ahead now. So what we need to do is we need to make some configurations. Okay. So I think it's time that we actually make use of the advantage of configuring our server like this. All right. So using our app as a middleware. So what that helps us to do is that we can actually separate concerns. So I'm going to create a file called src, and we'll have app.js inside of it. So what my app.js would have is everything concerning app. So everything concerning application is going to be written inside app.js. So what do I mean? I'm going to get rid of Express and put it here. Okay. And then I'm going to import app from, so let me save app now. And I'll do module.export because app. Okay. So I'm going to import app from source /app. All right. And of course, my server is going to cry. So what happens is I take everybody from here, everything that has to do with app dot. I'm going to cut them away from there and put it here. Now, if you take your time and look at this file, it should finally make sense. So let me see, why are you still crashing? All right, Express is not defined where. So I'm going to save my server and everything is running fine. Okay. So you see now I've separated concerns. Everything that has to do with app dot, they are all here. Now I want to bring something to your notice because you might not notice that. So you might be feeling confused. Let me make this very clear. To some of you, it might feel natural. You understand what I just did, but there are people who I'm sure they might feel confused about what I just did. So let's make it clear. So I'm going to get to Excalibur, and then let's do something. So I have a file called app. All right. This is my file called app. I have another file called server. All right. Stay with me. And then I want to use app. The content of app, I want to use it inside server. All right. So what do? I import app. So let's make this right. So what do? I import app inside of server. So it means that what I just did here by importing app, so when I do const app equals, that's what I mean by importing app, require app, is to take everything exported from app. In this case, now we exported app from app. Okay, the app variable, we exported it from the app file. All right. So everything exported from app has been imported here. So this line is just as if we had all the exports from this app written directly inside server. That's what it means. You go back to our code and see what do we have inside of app. We have all these things inside of app, right? And what are we exporting from app? We're exporting app. What is app? App is an object. When we say .use, it's like we're registering new keys into that object. So when we say .use, we're registering something into app. It is still this app object, but we're just adding stuff to it, right? So you say app.get this, you are configuring things inside the app object. It is still the app object. So when we export this object and then import it here, it is as if everything you have written inside of here, all right, we put it here. Okay? The difference is just that we're trying to follow the rule of separation of concerns and modularize our application. That's why we separated the files. Nothing complex has been done. We're exporting app from here, and we're using that export inside of here. All right, so don't get confused. If we go back and we run this application, everything should still be working. As you can see. All right, if I go back to home, our API is still running. All right, so now I want to configure views. That's the reason why we are here. So we go to app because we are configuring it here. So I'm going to put a comment here and call it middleware. All right, and this will be API routes. All right, so this is the middleware. So we're going to do app.use. All right. So not app.use. This is a configuration setting. So we use app.set. So I'm going to call this settings. All right. So we say app.set. All right. And then what are we setting? We're setting something called views. Express understands when you say views. This is not the same as your views folder that you created. This is something that Express understands. It's a setting. So I'm trying to set views. All right. And then what do we want to do? We want to add the path to our views folder. Okay, this seems to confuse some persons, but it's just we're using the same names. But it's just like that, just cram it. All right, so how do we do this? We need to correctly set our path. And one way we can do that is by making use of the path core module. Okay, so we require path from NodeJS. And here we see path with join. Okay. We use their name. This is a global variable. All right, global variables are available everywhere. You don't need to declare them. All right, it's a global variable. So their name, what does it give us? It gives us the directory, the path to this directory. Okay, our current directory. And then we say views. Okay. Let me log this to the console so that I see what's happening here. It is not magic. Console.log. So I'm going to do views. Denim. Let's just do denim. What do you see here? You see that it's a path to this directory. All right. Users, sleek codes, documents, zero training, view in Express, SRC. The path to your current directory. Okay. And then we want to say /views. /views. Where am I? Settings. /views. So to do that, we use path.join. So I'm going to copy this and console log it so that you see. So path.join means join them together. So where are you? You see now we now have /views. Okay. So why do we actually need path.join? Not just to join them. Because if you are running on Windows, right? If we are done / and stuff like that, or if we are written this directly here, okay, perhaps it will work on Mac, but if you run this application on Windows, you will have problems. The reason is because Windows uses a backward slash for path, right? And then Mac uses /. All right. So when you use path.join is going to resolve it for the OS that you are running on. All right, that's the importance of path.join. So their name will give us the directory that we are on, the complete file path of the directory that we're on, which is src. And then views is another path of our URL. So join is going to join them together. All right, I hope that makes sense. So there you go. So in our configuration here, we have to say set views and then give it a path to our views folder. All right, I can foresee an error, but I will allow it happen before I explain why it happened. All right, so let's go. App.set again. Now I say view engine. So what view engine do you want to make use of? I'm going to say PUG. All right, so this is the setting that you need. So let's make use of the PUG engine now. Let's make use of the PUG engine now. So how do we make use of the PUG engine? So I'm going to come here and say, when somebody requests for landing, right, like landing page, we want to rest.render. That's the method that you use to render template engines. What do I want to render? I want to render, what is this I call landing? Okay. And then I need to pass the data. All right. So what is the data that I need? That will be an object. Somebody's trying to say something. All right. That will be an object that has all the data inside our HTML. All the data inside our HTML. All right. So this HTML doesn't have much. It has foo and bar. Okay, so let's go back to the documentation, pub, and see what happens. So I'm looking for the data that was used. No data. That's unfair. So let's go to their documentation and see. Bug syntax tutorial. Let's see. So let's try something. We're going to go back to our code. And we're going to say head. I'm getting rid of this. Save. So let's do something here. Let's put our HTML here and send the data. And see how that works. Will that work? No. Landing. Let's try it. /landing. cannot get landing. So we should say get, not post. All right. Fail to look up view landing in views directory. So this is the error that I predicted will happen. All right, so let me explain why that error is happening now. So let's go back to where we configured our views. All right. Note that we are actually running this file. We're not running this file here. This is not where this file is being run. This file is being run in Server. We only separated the code, but we're actually importing it inside of Server. So we should think of this, our code, as if it was written inside Server. All right. And if we do that, we would understand that this URL is not correct. All right. For this URL to be correct, we need to be directly positioned on Server. So what we'll do is we're going to come out by one step. If you understand path navigation, you would know what this does. Okay, so this is like writing ... views. All right, that's what it is. So let's try this if it will work. If I refresh, it works. All right, so we have fog templates and it is rendering. So let's pass in data into it and see. Fog, so let's see, you are amazing. We'll say message, but how does it work with you? So let's try message. Message, data dot message. Let's go. So we're gonna say data and message would be you're amazing. So let's see if that works. Refresh. I'm looking for you amazing. Where are you? Doesn't work. Data dot message. So let's go back to our pop templates. Okay. Now I need to check for the correct syntax. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. All the compile, no, all the render is merge options local. All right. I think we'll get our solution from this document. It's been up to like 5 years since I used POG, so you're going to forgive me on this. I can't remember the syntax, so let's see. Render POG options. Where's options coming from? And options object also used as locals objects. That's what I've been doing, but it ain't working. No POG. All right, so let's do this now. Right. Do this. Accept to video. Right, so I'm gonna say import, write a node server that uses org as a templating engine. Okay, to serve org files. Make it basic. All right, so there you go. Everything is correct. Render index. Okay, modify your code to pass data to the template and show me how the template code looks. Okay, so it has been modified. We have our data. And where is data? This is data. So exactly what. Okay, so let's see the template code. Data dot. I see. So let's check. Back to you. Data the message. Oh, equal to. That's interesting. That's interesting. Still doesn't work. We're looking for, let's go. So come here and this should be message. And it doesn't work. So let's try. You're amazing. Data dot message. Data. So why aren't you working? Everything seems to be fine with our code, but it is just not working. Oh my God. And nobody saw that. So this is a conditional. So this is a conditional. I'm writing it inside a condition. I think if I remove the condition, oh, I just wasted my precious time. So I'm going to get everything back and put it here. This should do the trick. Oh, I hope so. So I was in a conditional. And that's why it wasn't working. So if you paste now and check, showing data message. Wow, that's interesting. Let's go. H1 equals to data message. Oh, what do you want? Do you want blood? Okay, one blood. Let's check. What exactly is the syntax, man? Choo-doo-choo-doo-doo. All right, let's see. For details now. For details now. Let's see. I think we should use EJS. Yeah, it's a stubborn dog. So let's see. I think we should use EJS. Let's try EJS, right? So npm EJS. Okay. Rec the query. How's that? Okay. All right, so let's go. I think EJS is more friendly. We'll do npm I EJS. Right, and then we require EJS in our file. I know you're trying to declare the variable on one line, but that's not my thing. And EJS the render. No, that's not how we do it over here. So we're gonna say EJS, and we're gonna do rest the render. Okay. All right, so let's pause for a while, bring our users back, and let's check the code out. Users is users, users will join, yeah. Delimiter, who's delimiter? Let's render and see. So rest.render, okay, refresh. For EJS. Let's see, let's see, let's see, let's see. Okay. All right. Think there's a stubborn bug somewhere that we need to take our time to debug. So let's go back to what we're doing. It is part of programming. So take time to debug this today. Let's see, rest.render. This is correct. Landing. Oops. Server wasn't running. So let's debug. Let's debug POG. We have to get it right. POG syntax. Let's look at it intently. So what's happening? H1 equals data, the message. And data being passed. This is data being passed. It's an object, has a title and a message. It is being accessed like this. Exactly what we're trying to do, but it's not working. So I'm gonna go back here to POG. All right, let's make this. It works here, then it should work here. So H1 equals high. So high is working. So I guess the issue we have is bringing our data into this template because this is the syntax. So let's check here if there's something we're doing wrongly. This is res, and we're rendering the landing page, and our data is supposed to be passed in there. In data, we have message. So how do we pass that in? They keep mentioning, one thing in this doc, we keep seeing options being mentioned, but you never see where options is coming from. So this is options, but there is no example of what options should be. It's an options object. Yeah, we know, but what is it? All right. So we need to find that out. So body, no, that's not what we need. So let's try this. Let's try this. Cannot recover this undefined reading message. At this point, I'm almost giving up. Sure. You're amazing. So let's get used to how it was before. Every temperature is very good. These two and the section. So I have solved the problem. So for this, we are going to just simply say equals message. Equals if you check, our message is printing here. This is a message, and this is coming from our JavaScript file. So this is being rendered from here. This is a message, all right? So let's try it on the body and see how that works out. This is another message. Let's see message 2. This is another message. I will change this to message 2. Let's see how that works. All right, so we cracked it finally. Okay, so this is how you enter data using POG. So you render your file in the views folder, which is landing. You don't have to say .pog because Node is going to recognize that you're trying to use POG since we configured Node to use POG here. So at this point, we said the view engine that should be used is POG. All right. So at this point, we do not need to specify the name of the file, like the file type. The name of the file. Or else you're going to show get on it simply because this is true. All right, so that is POG for you. You can go and make your research on how to suffer more with code. But basically, template engines are not used for sophisticated uh, uh, pages. Okay, so if you have pages that are doing a lot of computation, template engines are not your guy. You can actually run React code on this Node.js server, right? Maybe, not maybe, we're going to talk about it, okay? So you have your React in this public directory, not today though, we'll talk about it. You have React in this public directory, and then you are serving it just the way we did before we started talking about templating engines. So your React application can be served from your Node.js server. So you can use React for those complex, things that you want to do on your UI, but not template engines. Template engines are for very simple, simple tasks. Okay, that's why you have them. If you need complex jobs done, you use stuff like React and Vue and all those, other frameworks that you have there, because these are really error prone, like easily error prone. You can see that we've been debugging for almost 15 to 20 minutes now on this syntax for this. That's how frustrating they can be to work with. But I would encourage you to learn how to use them further than what we have done. Just research yourself. But like I said, building engines for like the last 5-6 years, because they are not commonly used. All right. So yeah, there you go. So I'm going to take questions now, and before we end the class, questions, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. T. So my question is, when you're using the public folder for rendering static files, if you have more than one HTML file inside it, which of them gets rendered?
Index.
Okay, okay, the one named index will be rendered.
Yeah.
Okay, even if you have multiples. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Any other question?
Hello, T.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you all the way back, and I apologize for that.
All right.
When we were trying to serve our HTML form to the server, the login page, which extracted the password and username, when you console logged it on the server, we saw it on the terminal, right? So I'm still having a challenge with this. In a situation, an event, I think it was given in one of the previous assignments, in an event where we would use a database in a real life scenario, but then in an event where we want to send that to a particular file created on our thing, how would we do that?
Okay. I actually intended to do that in this class, but because of time. So, and we still don't have time actually. The truth is, it is nothing different from what we have learned before. All right. If I go back to this file, so this is the file handling my routes, right? So instead of logging it to the console, right, I could just write to file. Do you understand? So instead of logging to the console, I could just write to a file. The same way we did during the previous classes, right? Writing to file is the same here. You just fs dot write file. right? And then that's it. fs.write. You give it the file path, give it your data that you want to write to the file. And you've done that already. So it's nothing different from what you have done in the last class. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, all right. And I think most videos, they take time to get uploaded. And like
Yeah,
it has been mentioned, I would like to have these videos on hand. And I wouldn't mind immediately, maybe much later, same day as the class was taking, to reinforce.
I get you. But I have little control over that.
Yeah, you've mentioned before. Thank you very much. I'll try to implement this and see how it goes.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, guys. Yeah, it has been an interesting class. So we're going to have more classes like this. And I feel very pleased with everybody who sat through the debugging session. It's going to happen often. And I do this on purpose so that you can see me debug. All right. There's an option of having my code on another screen. So I'm viewing the code while I'm teaching. If I do that, there will be no error. Like everything will be smooth. And you think that I'm a champion. All right. Most of the videos you see online, most of the courses you see online, they are all edited. All right. Unless it's a live stream, they are all edited. And if you have attended coding sessions, live stream coding sessions, you will know that debugging is like a huge part of the video. All right. So that's how you learn. That's how you learn to handle errors. That's how you know that if errors are even normal and it occurs even for developers on any level. All right. So it's a good thing that you're patient enough to sit through the debugging session, and I appreciate that. So I'll see you in the next class, and that will be on Monday. Thank you so much for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.